This project is part of a series in which I combine clay hand-building processes with fibre and textiles techniques. The full classroom workbook for this project is available in the video description below. Included in this workbook is this project tutorial with instructions and pictures, as well as instructions on how to make all of the clay vessels in this fibre and clay series. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate rope coiling. To start coiling, attach a piece of masking tape to the end of the cord. This will stop the end fraying and make it easier to work with. I'm using 5mm cotton sash cord. Then, where the tape is, cut the cord on an angle so it tapers to a point. Now take a length of wool about 2 meters long and thread it into a large needle. I'm using a large eye blunt needle. Take the other end of the wool and lay about 3 centimeters of the tail along the tip of the cord in the opposite direction. Start about 1 centimeter from the tip of the cord and wind the wool around. Wind the wool about 2 to 3 centimeters up the cord, then crimp it like this. Holding the cord together, you need to wind the cord around to connect it. Then take the needle and thread it through the centre to make it secure. Starting the coil off is probably the most challenging part of this process because it's fiddly and you need to hold the cord quite tightly to stop it uncoiling. So it might take a few tries, but once you've done this part, the rest is much easier. Wind the wool down the cord about 10 times. Then bend the cord around so it spirals around the centre. Holding the cord together, thread the needle through the centre to secure it in place. Then start winding again. See, I'm wriggling my fingers because they're hurting from having to hold the cord so tightly. But as I say, after this bit, it's much easier. Try to wind the cord about the same number of winds each time so the stitches are evenly placed. So each 10 or so winds, take your needle and thread it around the cord next to it to secure it in place, and then keep winding. There's a few different ways to hold and wind the coil. I'm right-handed, and what works best for me is to hold the tail of the cord with my left hand and wind the wool around the whole coil with my right hand. For the left-handers, you could try reversing this and holding the cord with your right hand and winding with your left. There isn't a hard and fast rule, so see what works best for you. It's kind of like knitting or crochet in that once you repeat it a few times, it becomes instinctive and you don't need to think about it so much. To add more wool or change the colour, lay a new piece of wool over the tail of the old piece and wind the new wool over the top of both. Then stitch it in the same way and keep going as normal. You can change the shape of the basket by positioning the new cord above the old one instead of beside it. Hold the cord in place like this and wind and stitch. When you go to make the stitch, make sure the new cord is positioned above and the stitch will keep the cord in place. Where you place the new cord will determine the angle of the wall. Here I'm trying to make a pot, so I'm putting the new cord directly on top of the old so the walls will go straight up. But if you want to make a bowl shape like this, which I'm going to do at the end of this video, you'd position the new cord on more of an angle so the walls will go up and out rather than just straight up. You can even make the walls go inwards by positioning the new cord inside like this. So I'm holding the cord tightly in place with my left hand as I thread the needle through and pull it tight so the cord stays in place. To finish off, attach another piece of masking tape to the cord to stop it fraying. And cut it on an angle like you did at the start. Again, this is so the cord tapers to a point. Now wind the wool around the tapered point a few times to cover it. Then once you get close to the end of the taper, start stitching it to the cord below until it's covered. Pull quite tightly to make sure it's secure. Then knot it by threading the wool back through the loop 2 times before you pull it all the way through. I made a matching lid for this pot using the same technique, and then I added the bead by threading it up with wool and tying it to the top of the lid. If you don't want the stitches to show, you can do a blind stitch or a figure 8 stitch. I'm working with a thicker cord and some multicoloured yarn to make a bowl. The process is basically the same, but when you make the connecting stitch, you do it in a figure 8 rather than around the outside of the 2 cords. So you wind and wind like normal, but this time when you go to stitch, thread the needle through the front, pull it through the back, and then bring the thread back in between the 2 cords. So again, wind the wool, stitch through the front, pull through the back, and bring the wool back in between the cords to the front. Like anything, it takes a bit of practice to get it right, but once you do it a few times, it becomes second nature and you get the hang of it. For this bowl, I'm going to make some handles. To do this, I've double stitched the wool and then wound it around the cord for about 8 centimetres. Then I've attached it so it bumps out from the cord below. And I'm stitching it using the same figure 8 or blind stitch before continuing on to do the same on the other side. And then I've finished it off with the tape and taper technique from before.